everyone, it's another Marvel Monday, and this week I'm going to be taking a look at another Marvel Select action figure, and it is Beta Ray Bill. Now I have to admit, this was something of a surprise when I first saw this listed. It is a Disney Store exclusive, at least here in the UK. And this feels a little bit out of left field. I'm not quite sure what prompted them to go with Beta Ray Bill of all characters in the Marvel Universe. And bear in mind, there's still quite a few core characters that we've yet to see released in this line after all these years. There's no major Marvel movie or TV show. I'm not sure if he even has a current comic book appearance at the moment, so an unusual choice for sure, but a very pleasing one nevertheless, because I always like to see some of the more obscure characters given the Marvel Select treatment. So this is really nice, very refreshing and very surprising. He's far from being my favourite Thor character in the universe, but I still think he's pretty cool and pretty fun looking, and I think he will make an excellent figure. So let's get started. If we look at the packaging, of course this is that standard Diamond Select oversized packaging that we've come to know and love from this series. It is pretty humongous, and I think it's got an overall nice look. Most of it, of course, is that window display where we can see the action figure in all his glory, and then we have the standard sort of branding around the edges here, and of course those comic book images, that collage in the background of that sort of purple hue. This looks really nice, very presentable, and always looks really exciting on the shelf. And on the side panel here, of course, we have this big chunky space that is dedicated to original comic book art. I really love this approach. It looks fantastic on display when you line these figures up on their side on the shelf. I think this is absolutely brilliant stuff. And then on the reverse, we see this image again replicated here, and behind him some more collage images from across the years. So I think this is really nice, attractive packaging. You can put this on display and it's always going to look really fun and attractive to the eye. Now, the character is larger than life, and I really love the Marvel Select oversized figures. They're my favourite in this line. I think it's something they absolutely excel at, and Beta Ray Bill is no exception. I think this head sculpt is really, really nicely done. There's actually quite a lot of detail here. I really like how they've got that sort of central mane in his helmet there as well, and there's actually different colours. It actually is moulded into specific shape as well, so it looks like it's blowing in the breeze. I think they've done a really nice job of that. The actual head sculpt itself, of course, they've captured that horse-like appearance, and I think they've done a pretty good job of that. There's not an awful lot of shading in the face, as you might expect from this line, but what we have is a lot of detail, and it still works really very well. I'm not sure if they've recycled any of the parts for the actual body. This looks new to me, I could be wrong, but everything looks to have been sculpted in. So all these various bits and pieces on his gauntlet, the various straps and rungs on his different parts of his costume there, all looks to have been sculpted in. So I think this is pretty unique to this character. I think they've done a really good job with these pieces. It looks nice and bulky, it looks pretty comic book authentic, and of course the colouring, the paint taps are magnificent. The gold looks like a proper rich gold. There's a lot of texturing and shading in these colours as well, so this looks really rich and very, very colourful. Now, I have mixed feelings about the cape. On the one hand, it is incredibly restrictive. It's a very, very hard plastic. There's not a lot of give in this at all, so you're not going to be able to pose it, and of course it will hinder the articulation. All that being said, it is very nicely sculpted, and I particularly like the paint taps here again, because of course we're seeing a lot of depth and a lot of texture that makes this feel very rich and very authentic, which is lovely. Unusually for this day and age, he does only come with the one pair of hands, so there are no swappable parts here, but I think what they've given him work really very well. He's got that open hand and he's got that grip in hand, and these serve perfectly because I can't really think of what else I would particularly want. Maybe a closed fist, but to be honest, this does everything I want it to do. And here we can see the boots, of course, a completely unique sculpt to this figure and very nicely painted. It's got real rich, sumptuous gold paint here, which works really well. So how does he fare in terms of articulation? Well, not great. He does have a ball joint at the head, but because of this big plastic mane we can see here, he's only really able to turn it slightly left and right. Not a very good range of motion at all. He does have ball joint in the shoulders, however, and that does allow his arm to kick up and out. There is a pin swivel at the elbow, which will bend to 90 degrees, and of course it will swivel all the way around, so no problems here. He does, of course, have a pin swivel at the wrist as well, so that wrist will rotate just the same, and it will hinge forwards and backwards at pretty decent distance as well. Now, he has a ball joint in the upper chest, which will allow him to move from side to side. There's a separate plastic piece on the front there, which does move quite well with this articulation. So he can lean from side to side, and he can just about move forwards and backwards, but not a huge range of motion here. Again, ball joints in the hips, allowing the legs to kick out to the side. There's also a pin swivel at the knee, so just as we saw at the elbow there, that lower leg will spin all the way around and it will hinge to about 90 degrees. The legs will kick forwards, they'll kick backwards, and there is finally an ankle pivot there as well, allowing that foot to move from side to side and hinge forwards and backwards. He's quite light when it comes to accessories, but what he does have are actually pretty brilliant. So of course he does have his own hammer, his own version of Mjolnir, which is pretty cool, distinctively shaped, very nicely painted as well. And then he also has this sort of whirling effect, which I love this. We've seen something like this previously on another Marvel Select Thor figure in the past. I think it's an absolutely fantastic effect and I absolutely adore it. I think it just creates such a brilliant action pose. And as you can see here, he has no problems whatsoever holding these accessories in that one gripping hand. It serves both these accessories perfectly, and yeah, you can see for yourself, this looks absolutely tremendous. I think this just really creates a really dynamic pose straight away and just makes a fantastic display all on its own. So, final thoughts from me. Well, I'm going to give this 3 stars. Now, that might be surprising. I do think this is a really great visual figure. I think it looks really good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this sculpt. The paint apps are top notch, and I love this whirling accessory. I think this is really fantastic stuff and really very, very fun. So, why only 3 stars? Well, for me, articulation is always going to be absolutely key for any review, and unfortunately, I feel like it just falls slightly short here. Obviously, not being able to move his head is very limiting. It doesn't have the same range of motion that we might have seen from some other previous releases. I'm thinking, say, the Immortal Hulk, for example. He's a lot more limited in terms of his posability, which is a real shame and a detriment here. And of course, it's not helped by some of the plastic pieces that he's got in his costume that are really hindering what is available in the first place. So for me, he's got to lose a couple of stars for that. But I think the overall presentation is very nice, but I think a lot of people will probably be on the fence with this character anyway. And I think if you're not a fan, this probably isn't going to tempt you to pick him up. But if you are, then I think, you know, you should be encouraged to go and do so, because I think he probably is the best Beta Ray Bill figure on the market. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.